Hi there, boys and girls, and welcome to the Literature Lighthouse. I am so excited to be with you today and to share light and joy and wonder through the book I've got. It is one of my very, very favorites, and it's for sure one of my kids' very favorites. He requested this one next. So I hope you love it as much as we do at our house. And this one is called August Explains. Have you ever needed somebody to explain something to you, and even when they did, it was still kind of confusing? Well, that's what happens when August tries to explain. Let's see. Are you ready? I am. August Explains by Phil Ressner. Pictures by Crosby Bonsall. I'm tired of eating honey all day and splashing in the river, Ted said. I'd like to be something else for a change. Ted was a young bear. He was resting in a tree talking to August, an old bear. August was very intelligent and very good at magic tricks. Well, what in the world would you rather be? He asked. And then he crossed his legs and leaned back near the entrance of his cave. Well, I've been thinking it would be nice to be an elephant, Ted said, but I just decided that I want to be a human being. He jumped down out of the tree. That's what I would want to be, he said. August said. Trouble is, I haven't turned anybody into a human being in years and years. I don't know if I remember how to do that. Ted had not expected this. He sat down on an old tree trunk to think it over. As I remember it, August went on, a human has to be able to do certain things. I can do all sorts of things, Ted said. I can climb trees and I can catch fish and... Those are bear things, you ninny, August shouted. Well, I can do human things too, Ted shouted back. Maybe so, August said, but little boys can do all sorts of difficult things. Would I be a little boy human? Ted asked. Yes, August said, because you're just a young bear and... But I'm big for my age, Ted interrupted. Don't interrupt, August said, interrupting. Now, as I was saying, you're just a young cub. If I change you into a human, you'll be a young human, a boy. Oh, said Ted. Well, what do boys do? And August began to explain. First, they get up in the morning, and then they wash themselves all over. Huh, Ted said to himself. What's so hard about that? Then aloud, he said, I just jump into an old brook and... Not the same thing at all, August said, waving his paw. Humans have this sort of big pot thing. They fill it with water and they sit in it. And sometimes they have a thing that rains on them, and all the while they rub themselves all over with a slippery thing that foams up like a waterfall. Oh, it's terribly complicated. Gosh, Ted said. Then what do? Then they rub their teeth with a brush and some other foamy stuff and so on. Boys do that every day? That's right, August said. And the girls too. And then, after they dress themselves... What's dress? Ted asked. To dress means to put on clothes. Clothes are bags and things. Humans pull them over their heads and put their arms and legs into them, and then they close the bags with buttons and zippers. What are buttons and zippers? Ted asked. He was very impressed. Well, I just happen to have a button here somewhere, August said. He got up and rummaged in a box on the floor of his cave. Ah, here it is, he said. He drew out a big button and showed it to Ted. "This is a very complicated thing," August said. "All humans have them all over their clothes. And when they dress, they have to push the buttons through little holes. It's awfully hard. I often wonder how they do it at all." "And do they do that every day too?" Ted asked. "Sure thing," August said. "And then there are zippers. To be perfectly truthful, I don't quite understand everything about zippers." He scratched his nose. "Zippers are things you pull up and down, and they make a very nice sound, like a sleepy bee. And when you pull them up and down, they get stuck. Sometimes you pull them all the way up, and you can't get them down. And sometimes you pull them all the way down, and you can't get them up. But the shoelaces are the worst of all." "What are shoelaces?" Ted asked. "Shoelaces look like very long worms. Humans use them to keep their shoes from falling off." "What are shoes?" "Humans put shoes on their feet to keep them dry and warm. Shoes are like hollow feet." Ted was listening with his mouth open. "Well," he said finally, "what do they do after they get dressed?" "Oh, yes," August said. "After they get dressed, they eat breakfast." "Ah," Ted said, smiling again. "That's good." "Yes, but it's complicated too," August said. "For instance, humans use special things for picking up food and putting it in their mouths." August thought for a moment. "Let me see. What do they call them? Shovels? No, that's not it at all." He scratched his head. "Ah, yes, spoons. Spoons and forks and knives. That's it. Knives and forks and spoons." "Why don't they use their paws?" Ted asked. August looked puzzled. "I guess I never thought of it," he said. "One day, some humans left a fork here in the woods. I think I stuck my nose a dozen times before I got that fork into my mouth. By that time, I dropped what I was eating." "Oh, my," Ted said, getting up from his tree trunk. He came very close and looked at August's nose. "Well, it wasn't so bad, really," August said. "After all that trouble, I wasn't hungry anyway." "And then what do those boys and girls do?" Ted asked. "After breakfast, they go to school." Ted started to say something, but August held up his paw. "You want to know what school is?" he said. Well, school is a place where children learn things. And after they learn them, the teacher asks questions like, if you have 3 bushels of potatoes and you eat 1 bushel, what do you have? Ted thought for a moment. I don't like potatoes. That is not the answer, August said. After school, boys and girls go out and play. And that's when they run up and down and hit a little ball with a stick. Sometimes they skitter around on little wheels or balance on big wheels. They do all sorts of difficult things like that. Gosh, Ted said. And then they do their homework, August said. Homework is more of those questions like, where is the best place to find honey? And what color is a brown bear? And where is the Bering Sea? And so on. And after that, they go to bed. And that's when they have to do everything they do in the morning, only some of it is backwards. Instead of dressing, they undress. Instead of washing, they unwash. Well, no, that's not quite right. They have to wash again, and so on. Ted looked a bit worried. He sat very quietly on the tree trunk. He was thinking. The only sound was the whooshing of the wind in the trees. The sun was going down. It was getting dark. August stood up and stretched. I guess I'll start that magic, he said. And then he dragged out a large iron pot. Before I turn you into a human being, I have to make a big pot of magic potion. Let me see, he said. First thing we need is water. He poured some water into the pot. Ted sat on a log a while August started a fire under the pot. And when the water started to boil, August threw a little of this and a little of that into the pot. And after a few minutes, he said, "Well, I guess that's just about ready. Are you ready, Ted?" Ted took a deep breath. "I've been thinking it over," he said. "I've decided to stay a bear." "Oh," August said as he stirred the pot. "I see." Then Ted looked at his feet for a long time. He was embarrassed. "I don't know how I'll do all that buttoning and zipping," he went on. "I can't eat with a fork and go to school. Boys and girls must be very, very smart to be able to do all those hard things. I could never do them. I'm sorry I put you through all the trouble of making the potion," he added. "Well, no harm done," August said. "This potion is just as good as stew. Why don't you stay and have some?" Ted was so glad to hear this that he laughed and did a little dance. Then the two bears sat down together and started to eat the stew. And that was August Explains. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Have a wonderful, joy-filled day.